What's going on, everyone? Welcome back. Today we've got our Week 17 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup, so make sure to tune in. If you enjoy, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section. Do you agree, disagree, along with any other questions you guys might have? We will do our best to answer them all, but with that being said, let's get right into it. Today's video is brought to you guys by Birddogs. And look, I know we're all searching for that perfect pair of shorts or pants that offers the best style, the best comfort, the best bang for your buck. Well, guess what? That search is over because Birddogs offers all of that and so much more. If you're looking for shorts, they have a ton of options with active wear, casual wear, or even beach wear. On top of that, their pants have a selection of khakis, joggers, and sweatpants. So what are you waiting for? Regardless of the occasion of the season, get yourself the most stylish, the most comfortable pair of pants with a built-in liner from Birddogs.com. And if you use promo code ADP today, you'll get a free rope hat with your purchase. Again, that's birddogs.com, code ADP, and you'll get a free rope hat with your purchase. Make sure to check out birddogs.com, link in the description, and we kick off Week 17, aka Fantasy Football Championship Week, on Thursday with the Cowboys at the Titans. And in terms of running backs, this is a great matchup on both sides. For the Cowboys, as has been kind of the case all season long, you've got both Zeke and Tony Pollard being fantasy viable. I do maintain the belief that Zeke has the higher upside just because of his rushing usage, but Tony Pollard has been an absolute weapon as a pass catcher, so they're both fantasy viable. Now, you do see the asterisk next to Tony Pollard's name, and that is because, there's some questions with him practicing, his health, and with this being a short turnaround, them playing on Thursday, we need to keep an eye out for Tony Pollard's status if he plays. The Titans matchup, I do think, is a good one. And if he's out there, you would assume that the Cowboys trust him in being part of the game plan. So I would fire him up. I think, again, if they're both playing Zeke and Pollard, they're both mid to high-end running back twos. But if for some reason Tony Pollard takes a step back, does not suit up on Thursday, then I think Zeke's value goes through the roof. He is an RB1, no question about it, top 10 guy. Then for the Titans, Derrick Henry, he continues to be, in standard formats, a top 5 running back. Now, the only way I could see this potentially not being the case this week is if the Cowboys, go up very, very big on the Tennessee Titans, which is very possible. Again, Ryan Tannehill is out for the remainder of the regular season. We saw the Titans lose to the Houston Texans, and they could be in some trouble here, but Derrick Henry is such a focal point of this offense that I do think he will get his. So for that reason, I still have him as an RB1 in standard formats, but admittedly, his ceiling is much lower than what it would have been with Ryan Tannehill under center. Moving on, though, we've got the Cardinals at the Falcons. For the Cardinals, James Conner, when healthy, he's been a part of the game plan as a pass catcher, getting the volume as a rusher, regardless of who the quarterback is for Arizona, and he gets a favorable matchup here versus the Atlanta Falcons. I like James Conner as a top 15 running back on the week. For the Falcons, we're probably seeing that change of guard in Algier overtaking Cordero Patterson. It's kind of been coming these last couple of weeks. Algier getting the bulk of the carries this last week. And, I continue to say that he's probably the option that you want to go with. Patterson just not getting the volume as a rusher and or as a pass catcher. Now, I'm not that excited about Algier, I'll be honest with you guys. I think we're probably looking at like 15, 16 carries for, between 70, 80 yards. You're praying for the touchdown. To me, in PPR formats, tough to trust him. More of a standard play, kind of a high-end running back 3. And then Patterson, for all the reasons I mentioned, is a sit. Moving on, Dolphins at the Patriots. I'm only really interested in Ramondre Stevenson here for New England. And again, regardless of all the other Patriots rushers in that backfield, if Damian Harris plays or not, it doesn't matter. Stevenson, I do think, will bounce back, and he is the main running back to roster and to start for the Patriots. For the most part, he's been very consistent all season long. In cases where he hasn't, it's kind of been just a blip. and I will start him here. I think he, again, due to what he can do as a pass catcher, should be a top 15 running back on the week. Then for the Dolphins, look, we've said this before. When Wilson and Mostert are both healthy, they vulture each other. The Patriots, this is a divisional clash in Foxborough, and probably Tua not going to play again, at least this week, maybe this season. So it's going to be Teddy Bridgewater. This offense definitely takes a step back with him at quarterback, in my opinion. So another reason for me to fade Mostert and Jeff Wilson. Then we go to the Saints at the Eagles. I'll start Alvin Kamara. I'll start Miles Sanders. Now, don't expect to see an Alvin Kamara type of performance like we did last week. Just a heads up, the Eagles, much stingier team than what the Saints faced in Week 16. So I do think Kamara will drop down in that RB2 type of conversation where he's going to have to get saved by his pass catching. So to me, he's a mid RB2. For the Eagles, Miles Sanders, I'll start him. Could have been a better outing, but he got huge volume this last week, over 20 carries. I think that'll probably be the case again, especially if Jalen Hurts doesn't suit up, which it's looking like his injury is going to be a multi-week absence. So Sanders is going to be a focal point. I like him more than Kamara. I like him as a high-end running back 2 on the week. Then we go to the Colts at the Giants. I'm really only interested in Saquon Barkley here. He should be a top 10 running back on the week. He's had a couple of just very favorable matchups, and they have been all these last 2 weeks smash plays. The Colts aren't they're not going to be that tough of an opponent here. They're a complete mess right now. Also why you see both Zach Moss and Deion Jackson for them as sits. Whether it's just them wanting to see what Zach Moss can offer or Deion Jackson not being 100%. They are not giving the carries to Deion Jackson like they did earlier in the season when Jonathan Taylor wasn't available. Maybe it's, just the changing in coaching. I don't know. But also Nick Foles being the quarterback. The offense is absolutely atrocious. So to me, Moss and Deion Jackson are sits. Then we go to the Panthers at the Bucs. This is a really interesting matchup for me here for a couple of reasons. The first time these two teams played, the Panthers absolutely blew out the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, that was with a different quarterback, and it was, a game where they dominated on the ground. Deontay Foreman went absolutely wild. In fact, he's coming off a week where he went absolutely wild versus the Detroit Lions. So did Chuba Hubbard. But you're going to see that the games where the Panthers win, it's all about the rushing attack. The Bucs, again, this is a divisional clash. We already saw how the Panthers beat them the first time. I think the Bucs are absolutely just going to focus on stopping the run for Carolina. It's very tough to beat a divisional opponent twice, let alone to beat them in the same fashion twice. I just think that this is going to be a tough type of game flow. I think the Buccaneers are going to commit to stopping Foreman, stopping Hubbard, who, if they weren't getting those huge runs this last week, their usage is getting closer and closer, which does worry me a little bit. This is one I'm fine being incorrect on, but everything here points towards the Panthers not repeating their first performance versus the Buccaneers on the ground. So I'm sitting Foreman, I'm sitting Hubbard with that logic. Then for the Buccaneers, I think we can all kind of see that Rachaad White is the future. News coming out that Fournette has been playing hurt, but the Bucs are giving more opportunities to Fournette, especially in the passing attack. I'm going to ride with that here. I think it should be White if it was me making the decisions as a head coach, but that's not the case. I'm just setting the lineup. So Fournette has been getting more opportunities. I think he is a low to mid-level running back 2, just because you never know with this Buccaneers offense. You never know how the carries are going to go, but I'm definitely not starting 2 Tampa Bay rushers. That's why White is a sit. Afterwards, Broncos at the Chiefs. I'm only interested in the Chiefs rushers. The Broncos are an absolute mess. Firing the head coach, blaming everyone there. No faith in Russell Wilson right now this season. So I think the Chiefs could potentially blow out the Broncos. Pacheco and McKinnon, I think, are solid plays. I said it last week. Pacheco kind of the standard play. McKinnon more of the PPR guy. I think they're both mid-level running back 2s. Then for the Broncos, Latavius Murray, Chase Edmonds. Note, Chase Edmonds is returning from his injury, taking some more carries away from Latavius Murray. And with the Broncos probably playing from behind in this game versus the Chiefs, I think it could be a mess. I'd rather not touch the rushers for the Broncos. They are both sits for me. Afterwards, Bears at the Lions. So I'll start all the rushers here. I think that the Bears are facing a very porous Lions defense. We saw what the Panthers just did to the Lions, rushing the football. And I mean, Montgomery is, again, other than Justin Fields, the only fantasy viable option you could argue on this offense. I'll start him. I think he can be a top 15 play. But I mean, not to be passed up, the Bears are absolutely awful in their own right defensively. That's why I think the Lions, Jamal Williams and DeAndre Swift, could be fantasy viable both here. The carries scare me for DeAndre Swift, but he's getting opportunities as a pass catcher. I do think versus this bad Bears defense, you could see him getting some more carries. I have both of these guys right now as low to mid-level running back twos. Then we go to the Browns at the Commanders. I'm starting the top guys here only. I'm not looking at the backups or the flex options, if you will. For the Browns, it's Nick Chubb. Then for the Commanders, it's Brian Robinson. I think they're both probably going to get between 15 and 20 carries. More standard plays in their own right. Chubb has the higher ceiling. I would agree with that. But you're just hoping for the touchdown here. So to me, Chubb is a top 10 guy in standard formats. Brian Robinson, probably a low to mid-level running back 2, depending on how this thing goes for Washington. And then I'm sitting Kareem Hunt and Antonio Gibson, just not getting enough usage right now as things stand. Then we go to the Jaguars at the Texans. I'm only starting Travis Etienne here. It's a good matchup for him. The Texans very bad defensively. He should be, in PPR formats too, especially a top 10 running back upside type of guy for the Houston Texans. Without Dameon Pierce, I've said it. I'm going to continue to say it. You sit all Texans running backs. Then 49ers at the Raiders. You'll start Christian McCaffrey. Great matchup here versus the Raiders. I think he will bounce back from what he did last week. For the Raiders, this is where it gets really tough, folks. And I got some bad news for you. I mean, Josh Jacobs has been extraordinary all season long. He's coming off a bit of a dud performance. It ain't going to get easier for him here versus the 49ers. Very stout defensively. I could see a underperforming type of situation for Josh Jacobs, and I could see him bust really bad. But he's been so extraordinary this entire season. You have to start him because of what he can do, because of the usage. So I'll start him, but honestly, I have him in the running back 2 range for this week. So keep an eye out for that if you need, that huge upside. I don't think it's there for Jacobs in week 17. Then Jets at the Seahawks. This one's tough. I'll take a chance on Zonovan Knight primarily because Mike White is making his return. I said it last week. If it was Zach Wilson, no thank you to Zonovan Knight. That ended up being true. But now with White set to return, I'll take a chance on Knight. But I think he's probably in the high-end running back 3 range. I'm sitting Michael Carter. He's been phased out of this offense. For Seattle, yes, tough opponent in the Jets defensively, but I would start Ken Walker as long as he plays. To me, he is a mid-level running back 2. Then Vikings at the Packers. You start Dalvin Cook. This Packers defense doesn't scare me. I think Cook is going to have a decent performance, high-end running back 2. Then for the Packers, I know A.J. Dillon outperformed Aaron Jones this previous week, but that was, in part because Aaron Jones was banged up, and probably the Packers didn't want to risk it with him. But right now, reports, nothing super concerning. I think he's going to end up playing, and he's the main guy for the Packers at the running back position when both these guys are healthy. So unless Aaron Jones, for some reason, takes a step back, A.J. Dillon remains a handcuff, a sit for me. Jones is a low-end running back 1. Moving on, Rams at the Chargers. Cam Akers coming off a monster game this last week, and typically I say, look, you just kind of decipher who the opponent for the Rams is, and that's how you make those decisions in terms of if you want to sit and start. The Chargers, couple things here. Obviously, I do think they're the better team, but they do tend to play down to the level of their competition, and they've already clinched a playoff spot. So, at this point in time, what do they have to play for? They could just very well be trying to avoid injuries here. So I think Akers and the Rams could benefit from that. I'll start Akers. I think he's going to be a low to mid-level running back 2. Then for the Chargers, Eckler has been the number 1 running back in fantasy pretty much, especially in PPR formats. Sensational. But again, I worry about potentially the Chargers limiting him and sitting him because they just don't want to risk an injury to arguably their best offensive weapon outside of Justin Herbert. So for that reason, just keep an eye out for that. If Eckler is for some reason not expected to get his typical usage, Josh Kelly would then become a start for me as he is the backup to Eckler. Then Steelers at the Ravens. I'll start Najee Harris. he has been still the primary guy, getting more usage than Jaylen Warren, who is a sit for me, getting some redeemable qualities as a pass catcher. But to me, he's still in the running back 2 range, mid-level running back 2 for the Ravens. We'll see if Lamar Jackson returns this week or not. And yes, I realize Gus Edwards outperformed J.K. Dobbins this last week. But look, if you force me to pick one of these guys, I do think J.K. Dobbins is the more talented of the two, has the higher upside. But this is why I've always been out on the Ravens rushers for season-long purposes, because, they're going to alternate a little bit. You're going to have Lamar Jackson in the mix. But look, the Steelers, they don't scare me all that much. I think that they're going to focus, the Ravens, that is, on rushing the football. I do think Dobbins is kind of more so a low-end running back 2, probably high-end running back 3 because of Gus Edwards' presence. But if you force me to pick one between Dobbins and Edwards, I am picking Dobbins. Then Bills at the Bengals. Here, I really only want to start Joe Mixon. He's getting some more usage. This last week was encouraging. I'll start him. I think he's a high-end running back 2. For the Bills, I know what you're saying. I have Singletary and James Cook both as sits. They both had huge games versus the Chicago Bears. But, folks, the Bengals ain't the Chicago Bears. The Bears, awful pretty much, especially defensively. But I think the Bengals are going to be a much tougher out, and I don't think it's going to kind of set itself up for them just running the football and Josh Allen not having to do a lot with his arm. I think we're going to see the Bills air it out here, get back to that. So to me, Singletary and James Cook, both potentially just getting like 10 carries apiece. Tough to get excited about that, so I'm sitting both of them. But with that, we wrap up our Week 17 fantasy football running back starts and sits for every single matchup. If you guys enjoyed, hit that like button, subscribe, give us a follow on Twitter at AllDayPigskin to continue interacting with us there. Let us hear in the comment section, do you agree, disagree? Along with any other questions you guys might have. We'll do our best to answer them all. But in the meantime, we'll see you guys in future videos.